Hello freaks. I've been away for a little while. I haven't uploaded in a bit. Um, Things have been going on, but I thought I'd return with a Doctor Who book review. Obviously, we're a little bit all over the place at the minute, but ignore the hamster cage. So as you probably tell by the title that you clicked on, I am, of course, reviewing The Body Snatchers by Mark Morris. Another Eighth Doctor adventure, BBC Eighth Doctor adventure. This was the third book published in the range. I didn't have the second one. I've done a review of the first book in the range, The Eight Doctors, which you can find, which I read actually on my birthday. I was reading it during my sort of birthday celebrations. So yeah, I never managed to get the vampire one. I've forgotten what it's called, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But of course, this is an interesting one because obviously it's by Mark Morris, who I actually started by reading his non-Doctor Who books. I've now read 3 of his. I'm actually going to do another Mark Morris book review that isn't a Doctor Who related one. But yeah, so it was interesting reading this after reading his sort of his own horror writing. But yeah, I'm a little bit rusty on all of this because of the break. But there, anyway. Okay. So as you can probably tell, this is a Zygon story, featuring the Eighth Doctor and Sam. This was my first proper experience with Sam because she gets introduced in the Eight Doctors, but she doesn't get a lot of time, and she doesn't do anything with the Doctor really. So this was the first time I got to experience companion Doctor sort of thing, and Sam as a character, you know, properly. And she's fine. She's okay. She's not one of my favourites. I can see she often is seen as a bit of an annoying companion. Honestly, I thought she was not too bad in that respect. I can see why, but I kind of like what they're going for here. So, sort of her, because she's young, she's a little bit like Rose in a way. She's finding her footing, finding her place. She's got that sort of bravado, but there's like deep insecurities there. I mean, she's very different to Rose, but I you know, there's some similarities there, I think. But she's fine so far. The Eighth Doctor is really well written. I think Mark Morris has done a really good job at capturing him, particularly because at this point you only really had the TV movie and 2 other books, and I think like the Eight Doctors doesn't really feature the Eighth Doctor properly. And then Vampire Science, that's the other one. Obviously, you had before that. So really, you've got very limited scope for what that character is. And I think he does him really well here. Like, he feels like the Eighth Doctor. What I imagine him being. Obviously, before we got, like, Big Finish and all that. Which I've not listened to, but yeah, I should at some point. So, the characterization actually, I feel like Mark Morris's one of his strongest points as a writer is his characterization. It comes through here. There's some really fun characters. This also features Lightfoot, not Jago, unfortunately. I thought it would be weird and kind of it wouldn't really work, but honestly, I know some people don't like it, but honestly, I feel like it really works here. It is kind of weird how it's written. It almost reads like a TV way of doing it, where, oh, Jay goes off on holiday, that's why he's not here. And it feels like, oh, we couldn't get the actor in, but obviously it's a book, so it's sort of odd. Like, I don't know whether he just didn't really like Jago, or he didn't really want to write Jago, or I don't know, but um, he obviously decided not to. This obviously has a lot of elements from the Fourth Doctor, particularly from series 13, obviously, as series 13 and 14, because it's got Jago and Lightfoot, and then it's also got the Zygons. And that's another point, actually. The Zygons are done really well. I did enjoy them. I liked the Zygon partway through that the Doctor's interacting with. I don't want to give spoilers here, but I thought he was a fun character. But yeah, overall, I thought all the characters were really well written. Like I say, Lightfoot is really well done here. It gets down that like really fun character, the dialogue. You get a little bit inside his head occasionally, and yeah, he's as entertaining here as he was in TV Story. Obviously, before, I'm a massive fan of Jago and Lightfoot. Obviously, if you've seen my Big Finish collection sort of video I did, I said sort of because it's basically just Jago and Lightfoot series. I was a massive fan of that series. I haven't listened to him in a while, but yeah, it was a big thing for a little while for me. I think I listened to those before I even know who those characters were. So really, that's my appreciation for the characters comes from the series rather than from the original story. And to be honest, I don't think it's as weird as it could be, because of the fact that like Jago and Lightfoot in the original TV story don't spend a lot of time together in the actual story. It's really only towards the latter half of the story that they team up. But yeah, would it have been fun to have them together? Of course. But honestly, I think he really works here. He's got a really fun thing going on with the Doctor and Sam. But what about the story? The story's good. I think Mark Morris is a really good storyteller when he's doing his own fiction, personally. I think he can wind some really good tales. I think this is a little bit more, I don't know, I think it fits the thing he's going for. I think it fits the Fourth Doctor that is obviously homaging quite a bit. And it's nice to see his infusion of horror, his sort of horror sensibilities infused into Doctor Who. It's a little less horror than I thought it might be, to be honest. But there's some nice, gross moments. It's actually pretty gory in parts, which I thought was fun. And the sort of Victorian London atmosphere is great. I really, really like the setting as well. Obviously, I'm not talking about. Sorry, I think because it's good. It's good enough and interesting enough. It works for what he wants to do here, to precipitate the character interactions and have fun scenes, and it works. But I don't think anything really surprising happens. I don't think anything like really like particularly amazing story-wise happens here. It's a very straightforward plot, but I think it works for what it is. I honestly think it is a really solid plot. I like the building layers and sort of uncovering what's going on the further into the book you get. I will say it's kind of funny that obviously this shows you it's going to be a Zygon story. You can see the Zygon on the back. You know, it's got the Zygon thing. Body Snatchers kind of gives you a clue as well. But it takes a while for them to actually be revealed properly, for the Doctor to go, oh yes, this is the Zygon. You definitely get like, it's not going to be a surprise. If you didn't know this was Zygon story and you started this, I don't think it would take to that point for you to realise that. If you knew who the Zygons were, you'd figure it out fairly quickly. But and it's a bit like classic Who in that way of like going, you know, it's called something of the Daleks, and then at the end the cliffhanger is, oh my god, it's the Daleks. So yeah, it's a bit odd in that respect, but it's fine. It works. I do have some thoughts. So I think where mine, and I think most people's sort of, I have a little bit of an issue, is it's not really a twist, but it's towards the end. If you've not read this and you're planning to, or you don't want to be spoiled for this book, this is where you exit. Basically, very solid book, enjoyed. But I do have an issue with it, which I will get into now. Okay, so for those who are sticking around, I knew this was going to happen. I was kind of intrigued in what way it was going to happen. So towards the end of the book, the Doctor basically accidentally commits genocide, basically, on the Zygons. It's like, that in itself is a mad phrase to say, accidentally genocides. But basically, in it, he syringes, one of his plans is to basically knock the Zygons out on their ship, and then transport them to a barren planet and just leave them there, basically. But he has to make it safe first, so he injects like a knockout drug into the like tube that carries the Scarrison like milk stuff. If you know the Zygon story, you get it. But he comes back basically later and realizes he messed up. For whatever reason, the chemicals in it, in this knockout thing, it reacts badly with Zygons and basically melts them. It's a really gory, nasty scene, and very shocking. And basically he kills them. I don't have an issue with this premise as such. I think this could have been done interestingly in that I think we could have looked at maybe the Doctor's hubris, and like how he maybe isn't as careful as he should be, or you know, something like that. You could have gone into an interesting direction and explored the Doctor's character. But unfortunately, it's only really used as like a shocking moment. I guess just to be like, oh my god, you know, this happens. And so it feels cheap. It feels cheaper. Particularly because, you know, he doesn't really... There's not really much, like... oh my god, I forgot the word. But, like... backfall from it, you know, there's not much, it doesn't really backfire on him very much. There's no real outcome to it for him. As you can see, I've forgotten the word, but anyway, which then it leaves it in this weird place where obviously the Doctor is like horrified by what he's done, but it's kind of brushed aside. Like, the Zygon friend he meets, he, like, is horrified by the Doctor and he blames him for a little while, and then, like, a few pages later, he's just like, okay, I guess, you know, you didn't mean it, it was an accident, and then we just go on. It never really comes back into the story. Which I think is a shame, because you could have done some really interesting things there. But yeah, it never really goes anywhere, and so it feels like a cheap shock tactic rather than actually an interesting examination of the Doctor as a character or just anything, you know, interesting. Which I think is a shame. I honestly think it's a shame. Which is, yeah, it brings it down a little bit. I still think this is a really solid book. Um, I still think, you know, it works well for what it is. I like the, you know, side characters that we get, and their little adventures. I like the Zygon, I like the Doctor characterization, and everything. I think it's fun. It's a really solid book, and it's definitely a massive step up in comparison to the first book of the Eighth Doctor Adventures I read. Um, in a way, to be honest, this feels like a forebearer to the new series of adventures, the new Who Adventure books. It's got a little bit of that feeling. It's a little bit light and quick to read, and it's not going to stick with you particularly, but it is enjoyable. I did read this a little while ago now. I read this, I think, at the end of last month, and so I'm still remembering it, but I'm a little bit more sort of rusty on it. But I am remembering it. But yeah, it's not quite as good as it could have been. But I enjoyed it. Like I say, solid book. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, which for me, really solid. Yeah, I enjoyed. I read this really quickly, had a good time. There you go. That's my review of The Body Snatchers by Mark Morris. I would say my least favourite of Mark Morris's books I've read. Was the 3rd book I read by him. I've read 4 books by him now. 2 of which I haven't reviewed, 1 of which I will review soon. So anyway, yeah. Have you read The Body Snatchers? Do let me know if you've read it and what you thought of it. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you just think it, of course. And if you enjoyed the video, do obviously like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.